I come from Bihar, from a remote town on India-Nepal border. And when I was growing up there, opportunities were very scarce. I could see the resistance. Even though GST was implemented in the country, I could see the resistance because these were very small taxpayers, small traders, small businesses, not like the big ones, like not the big multinational, small ones. Because you said that point, I mean, because I worked in the Finance Commission for the past 2 years, and again, I had the opportunity of traveling to 28 states within a span of 12 months. So that cliche that India is a diverse country, it actually hits you on the face.
Today's guest is someone who stands at the rare intersection of technology, public finance, and transformative governance. He's a seasoned public sector leader who has served in some of the India's most influential institutions: Ministry of Finance, Finance Commission, and Goods and Service Tax Network, spearheading reforms that directly shape how our country collects, manages, and thinks about revenue. An engineer by training, a tax administrator by experience, a global policy thinker by choice, he holds a master's degree in the prestigious institute. Ladies and gentlemen, college students, policy makers, and young economists, let us go ahead and all welcome what we are going to go ahead and learn from a leader who has lived the evolution of India's governance from inside. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you so much, Arju, for this wonderful introduction. That was so kind of you.
Thank you so much. So, you have moved from engineering to taxation to public policy and now to high level governance. What shaped this multidisciplinary journey?
Arju, that's not something which I designed myself. I come from Bihar, from a remote town on India-Nepal border. And when I was growing up there, opportunities were very scarce. And as many of my peers had to do, I had to come out of Bihar to find a career. And my father always wanted me to become a civil servant. And he was also aware that the nature of this exam, UPSC, is very uncertain. Even if you try your best, there's a possibility that you might not qualify. So he wanted me to have a backup plan. And one of the backup plans was to prepare for the competitive exams for engineering. And that's what I did. So essentially, as far as my engineering journey is concerned, that was just a fallback option if civil services did not happen. And I came to Delhi, I prepared for the engineering exams, and fortunately, I went on to qualify for Delhi College of Engineering. But I would say that engineering was never my inner calling. And I have no shame to admit that even if I had become a full-fledged civil engineer, I would have been a rather bad one. Okay, so but fortunately, civil services happened. I cracked the exam, and I joined the Indian Revenue Service. And after that, I would say that I was able to navigate my path on my own, and I was also able to design my career path afterwards. So my first posting was in Gurgaon as a tax administrator, and there I learned the nuances of tax administration at a very micro level. And I also learned the significance of empathy because I was dealing with taxpayers on a day-to-day basis, understanding their grievances, addressing their concerns, etc. And this was the time when the goods and services tax was getting implemented. I am talking about 2017. And after like spending 1.5 years in the field, I was actually called upon by the Ministry of Finance in the CBIC, in the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, to work on transition provisions related to the GST law. And that was my first brush up with tax policy. And that sort of gave me, or taught me the significance of macro perspective as far as policy making is concerned. I spent 1.5 years there. And after that, I really wanted to invest some time on systems design. And there was no better place than the Goods and Services Tax Network. Again, I was very lucky to get an opportunity to work there. And there, in the Services Tax Network, I learned the significance of precision when you are making those systems and designing those workflows in the tax system design. Again, there 2.5 years there. And then COVID happened, and I decided that I wanted to pursue higher education because that's something my interest in economics, my interest in international trade, public policy, sort of forced me to work in that direction. And I prepared almost for 6.5 months, gave my GRE, TOEFL, etc. And I got into Columbia. And within Columbia, again, now I'll tell you the importance of luck here. I took a class on international trade, and my professor there was Professor Ravin Panagaria. And I also worked as his teaching assistant in Columbia University for a couple of semesters. And after completing my graduation, I came back to India, and I was working on investigation in the customs wing in Delhi only, in Delhi customs only. And within like 6 months of coming back to India, the president issued a notification, and Dr. Pangaria was appointed as the chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. And it was a serendipitous moment for me, because I again had the opportunity to work closely with him, because I'm a big admirer of Dr. Panagaria. So when the vacancy came of his post of private secretary, I applied, and I was lucky enough to be appointed as his private secretary and joint director in the 16th Finance Commission. So as you can see, coming back to the main question, that this multidisciplinary journey has been a combination of circumstances, also some sheer luck, and yeah, to an extent my own design.
Understood. So at least the students know now that they can anytime switch from one background to another, and that should never be an issue.
Yes.
And that reminds me of the movie The Intern, which I saw some time back,
yes, a good movie.
where you understand that even when you're at the age of retirement, probably you can make a switch and try something new.
Absolutely right.
Maybe I'll try reading some engineering book during my retirement years.
I would not suggest that. But nevertheless, please.
So, what was the biggest mindset shift that you experienced after studying at Columbia and returning back to policy making in India?
I would say Columbia was transformative in many ways. First of all, it took me out of my comfort zone. I mean, I was a civil servant in India. I was very comfortable. I had a good life. But then here I am in New York, in a city, and here I am in a classroom where you have students coming from 40 different nationalities, more than 40 nationalities actually. So it taught me to appreciate and understand complexity, or rather I would say to work with complexity. In India, we have this tendency to find easy solutions. I would rephrase it, not easy solutions, but correct solutions. Okay, we see everything as a puzzle, and we always try to find the right answer, the answer that would satisfy the needs of everyone. But in Columbia, I learned that it's not that. No problem that we face and try to address is a binary one. Everything has a trade-off. I mean, you are an educator of economics, so you would know. I'll just take the example of international trade. So when two countries decide to engage in international trade, you know that there will always be gainers and losers.
Right.
Okay. In the short term, the inefficient industries, or the ones that are not that competitive internationally, they're bound to lose. Their businesses might wind up, joblessness might also be experienced in that sector. But then there would be industries where the nation or the country has the comparative advantage. They go on to become winners. Okay, they contribute to the growth of the country. Okay, so the question is, what is that you want to optimize? Is it short-term jobs? Is it long-term growth? Because we know that when these industries grow, they expand, and they go on to absorb all those people from different other sectors who might have suffered joblessness in the past. So you know that in the long term, the country as a whole is going to grow if you engage in international trade. But is the political economy of the day pushing you against international trade or liberalization? Is it that the political economy of the day, or the trade unions or different stakeholders are asking for more protectionism? So these are the many questions that you have to answer, and there is no correct yes or no.
That's right.
So this is what my understanding was. And I also understood that you need to keep asking this question yourself: what is that you're optimizing for, and what is that you are ready to let go? Okay, so that was, I think, one of the most life transformative, or I would say my perspective bending moment that came in Columbia. Yeah.
And Please tell our audience something related to the TA experience that you had, that you were mentioning.
Okay, so yeah, so when I took international trade in my first semester, I was taught by Dr. Arvind Panagaria. I mean, he is one of the most noted economists as far as trade economics goes, and he's also, a scholar on Indian economy. So I really, when I entered, I really wanted to take his class, and boy, the moment I took his class, I was the happiest. I mean, I was a fanboy. I was telling you on the margins that my first book on Indian economy, when I was preparing for the civil services, was this book called India's Tryst with Destiny. It was written by Dr. Arvind Panagaria and co-authored with Professor Jagdish Bhagwati. Okay, and I had no inkling that one day I would be, studying in his professorship. So when I went studied in his class, of course, because I love the subject so much, I love the professor so much, I performed really well, and I was amongst the top in the class, and that was an opportunity to become his teaching assistant in the next semester. And he took me as his teaching assistant the next semester, and that was again a great experience, because then I TA'd not only for him but for other professors also who are teaching parallelly international trade across different semesters. Okay, so and not only that, after that, there is a international center for Indian economy in Columbia University, where Professor Panagaria worked as the director, and he would organize many conferences inviting the likes of our external affairs minister, the finance minister, many chief ministers also, noted economists, on various economic issues, public policy issues. There also I worked in close coordination with him, and I helped him organize the conferences, set the agenda, etc. So those 2 years, I had this great opportunity to work with him as his teaching assistant and also in the Indian Economy Center. And later, of course, I worked as his PS for 2 years within the Finance Commission. So that was my overall experience of working with Dr. Panagaria.
So when you're a teaching assistant, do you also check papers of students?
Yeah,
by
we
any
do.
chance?
Yeah, we
So
do.
how would you score the students?
I mean, so see, the thing with these universities is that they're very transparent. Okay, so I would know the professor. I'm not talking only about one professor. All the professors would have a set metrics. Okay, and we have to score the students as per that metrics. Okay, or for example, if you have a question on say I think your students would understand this, the Hexagon theorem.
Right.
Okay, then if there are like 5-6 steps, then there's a set metric that okay, if a student has shown all of these steps, then this is how much you have to give him. Okay, and if he has derived everything is in order, then you give him full marks. So for different steps, you have that matrix that is there. So it's not something that was my prerogative that I can give whatever marks as I please.
Definitely.
It was very transparent, very logical, and very methodical. Yeah.
Understood. So you have worked both in field administration and policy making. On ground experience would be definitely different from the other side of the role.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate between the two, and how does on ground experience help you gain better understanding of the office jobs that you do?
So that's a very good question, and it's such a good question. It's almost a cliche to say that field experience is very important in policy making. What I have felt in my limited experience is that on the ground experience, gives you a sense of texture, and that's very important. And let me take an example. So when GST was implemented, and I was working in Gurgaon at that time as assistant commissioner, so the government constituted a task force, and it was given the responsibility of conducting survey to take feedback of the trade from different districts of the country. I was sent to a district in Gujarat. It's a very remote district called Botad.
Okay.
And at that time, I had not even heard of this particular district. Nevertheless, I went there, and when I started my survey, I could see the resistance. Even though GST was implemented in the country, I could see the resistance, because these were very small taxpayers, small traders, small businesses, not like the big ones, like not the big multinationals, small ones. And they were really facing some challenges. Okay, so I had this realization that despite the best intentions, and despite the best sounding laws and rules and public policy that you might frame on the paper, it's the ground reality might be different. Okay, and one realization that I think the biggest takeaway from my experience at Botad was that practicality always triumphs over intention. Okay, a public policy has to be extremely practical, even if you have the best intentions. Similarly, during my finance commission deliberations, when we visited states, there also we interacted with local body representatives. Local body means the municipalities, the panchayats, and their sarpanch, the gram sabha members. And these are people who are like working on the ground. And when they started to give us feedback about the design of the grants by the previous finance commissions and the difficulties that they face in fulfilling the conditions that were designed for these grants to be allocated to them, I also realized that no, you might have designed a scheme, you might have designed a grant with the best intentions, but if it is not practicable, it is not practical to implement that on the ground, it loses its purpose. So all in all, I would say, if I have to summarize, I would say, if you have the on-field experience, you would know few things. The first thing is, you would know that which reforms you should phase rather than push. You would also know that what reforms, when a reform is implemented, you would also appreciate the fact that the implementation capacity is not the same throughout the country. Rather, it's a spectrum. Okay, so I think on-ground experience or field experience is like an internal compass. It helps you navigate the complexity of policy making.
And which is very much there in a big country like India.
Absolutely.
I mean, the kind of region, religions, and so many complexities we have in India, definitely on-ground experience would be very different.
Because you said that point, I mean, because I worked in the Finance Commission for the past 2 years, and again, I had the opportunity of traveling to 28 states within a span of 12 months. So that cliche that India is a diverse country, it actually hits you on the face when you traverse the country in such a short span of time, and you meet politicians, you meet bureaucrats, you meet people, you meet administrators, you meet local body representatives within a span of 12 months, all compressed. Then the diversity actually hits you. One morning you are in Tiruvananthapuram, having dosas, and within 5 days you are actually in Sikkim having their dumplings. Okay, so that diversity hits you. So I think, all the civil servants like us are lucky to get the experience of the diversity of the country that India has to offer.
Right. And it's so beautiful, I think.
Oh, it of course is the most beautiful country in the world. Actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yes.
So, during your time at GSTN, what was the toughest challenge in building such a massive digital infrastructure?
Again, that's a great question, and I look at my experience at GSTN as one of my best, because I have always been interested in system design, and when I went there, having worked on those systems, that was my inner calling in a sense. See, I believe that when GST was implemented, it was one of the most impactful and the biggest tax reform in the history of India.
Right.
Post-independence India, I don't think any tax reform comes even close to the impact that GST has created. And globally also, I mean, if you take examples of other countries which have implemented GST or VAT or similar sort of a structure, there is hardly any parallel that comes close to the GST experience in India. Now, GSTN can be understood as the IT backbone of the entire GST system. GST is a law, but when you are going to digitize it, when you are going to operationalize it on a digital platform, that platform has to be massive, and being the sort of country that we have, that platform is also going to be very complex. But the real challenge did not come from designing this complex system. That could be done, and that was done. The real challenge came from a different direction. You see, at that time, the government was also very responsive, because GST was a new law. And of course, new teething issues would come. People will share their feedback. Oh, this is not working. This is not done. There will be protests somewhere. There would be constructive feedback coming from businesses, from officers. So what happened, that even though GST law was written, the downstream rules and regulations, they were still evolving, and the government was changing rules and regulations almost on a daily basis. You receive a feedback, you change the rules and regulations. It sounds very simple and straightforward. But then the moment you change a rule, it has to reflect in the system also.
Right.
And system doesn't work that way. It's not like a switch that I can simply switch on and switch off. Okay, I have to redesign the entire thing. I have to also see that one change does not affect some other functionalities in my system.
Exactly.
Okay, so that I suppose was the most complex challenge that we faced, at least in the initial 2 to 3 years when the GST law, the rules, and the regulations were still evolving. Almost on a weekly basis, we are getting change requests from the government. Okay, understandably so, because the government was responsive and the responses and the solutions were also evolving. I mean, to summarize this in one sentence, I would borrow the quote of my CEO at that time at GST and Sri Prakash Kumar. He used to say that designing the GST system is like building a ship while it is still sailing. Okay, so that was the sort of complexity that we are dealing with, and that was
Right.
challenging, but at the end of the day, extremely fulfilling.
That's true.
Yes.
I think the entire system of India changed after GST.
Absolutely, absolutely, no doubt
And
about that.
India is actually one of the most digitized economy in the world now.
It is.
I think people appreciate the role of not only GST, rather the role of UPI and the role of how quickly we get our services at home.
Yes.
All that is only possible in
Yes,
India.
yes. I had some of my friends from the US who had visited me, and these apps like Blinkit and
That's true.
Zepto, etc. I mean, they were surprised to see that within 5 minutes
You get-
I could order a banana or a bread or
That's
milk.
true.
So, and also, just to take an example, I was in the US from 2021 to 2023, and in US you were issued vaccine cards. These were like almost like vaccine cards of the size of a postcard. You have to carry it, okay, and most of the times it will get folded. The ink will get smudged, and it were handwritten.
Okay.
Okay, but then we were not supposed to carry that because we had our digital vaccination card as a proof, and that was also available on demand. You just had there was this WhatsApp number. You just send your some details, and your vaccine certificate will actually be available on your WhatsApp.
Okay.
So that was the sort of seamless. And when I showed this feature to some of my friends there, they're all astonished. In fact, in my classroom discussions also, because I took certain courses on digital governance also.
Okay.
So I was the most proud student there, coming from India and telling what sort of development has happened on the digital front. Because I had many examples to take.
Many.
It's not like we have one flagship digital program that we can show. We have many. Okay, so you're right, absolutely right. The digital economy, what it is doing to the country as a whole, I think holds a lot of promise in the future as well.
And the good part is that it has deepened to all the rural areas also. I mean, it's not something which is just till the urban area, but everyone is taking the benefit of it.
Yes, yes. So my maid in Bihar, who works at my mother's place, you won't believe, but then she has 6,000 followers on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So this is the sort of penetration that we are talking about, of course.
Probably we should be collaborating with her.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, my next question is related to that. How do you see technology reshaping India's public finance over the next decade?
I mean, the potential is huge, I suppose, and I also think that the transformations are already underway. I'll just take few examples. Take tax compliance, okay? So when I was working in GST, and we worked on a very interesting project called the e-invoicing project. So what happens, for example, if you are a business today, you are issuing some invoices to your buyers, okay? First, you issue an invoice on your computer. Then you go on the tax portal to file your returns. Then you go, if you are a supplier, if you are sending goods to, say, to your buyer, then you also go on the e-way bill portal to register your truck, to register your conveyance, etc. So essentially what you are doing, you are feeding the same data at 3 different locations, okay? But then I think in 2020, this e-invoicing system was implemented in India. So what happens that you just go on the e-invoice portal, the IRP portal, and you fill in all the details there. And the moment you fill in the details, your GST return gets auto-populated.
Right.
Your e-way bill also gets auto-populated. So you see that the need to fill in the same details at different platforms is not there anymore. Okay, so it reduces complexity, it reduces errors, it reduces the possibility of disputes, etc. So tax compliance has become easier. Now let's go towards the other side of the table. What about ensuring compliance from the tax department point of view. So tax department, be it indirect tax department, be it direct tax department, they are using machine learning tools and data analytics at a massive scale to stop tax fraud and tax evasion. Okay, so technology is being used there also. And when it comes to AI, I think we have barely scratched the surface. Okay, so I think in the coming decade or so, we are all progressing towards an ecosystem where citizens, government, businesses, all of them are going to leverage technology for better compliance, better governance, and overall, all of this leading to better quality of life.
Right. Yeah. That's right. So, do you think tax evasion is going to fall over time due to this?
Of course. I mean, see, tax evasion and its control, all of it works on the principle of deterrence. Okay, the more tools you have, to detect tax evasion, to deter tax evasion, the more deterrence you create for the offenders. Okay, if I know that you have something that can detect my wrongdoings, then my incentive to actually do that reduces drastically.
Right.
So I think technology in the long run is definitely going to, it is already making a dent to tax evasion.
That's true.
Yeah.
So your work has extensively, you've done extensive work with data and quantitative tools. Why is it that data literacy is becoming essential for modern policymakers?
I think, see, as far as public policy as a field is concerned, it is not only getting more complex with time, it is also getting more quantitative. If you don't have a data mindset, if you don't have data literacy as a public policy professional, it is like navigating or riding in a city without signboards. Okay, so that data mindset is very important. And I'll just take a few examples to make my point here, or why data literacy is so important for public policy making. First of all, it helps you look beyond averages. India is a country of extremes. And during my finance commission visits also, I realized this, that there might be a district where the per capita income would be similar to an OECD country. Okay, and then you just go to a district hardly 100 kilometers from there, their per capita income would be way lower.
Right.
But if you are making your public policy, or you're introducing any reforms based on the average of a state's per capita income, suppose, then you are actually making wrong policies for both the districts.
Correct.
Right? So when you start looking data, when you start breaking the data and see that, okay, such extremities exist, such differences, such wide variations exist, then, you stop making those mistakes. You don't let averages dictate your judgment. So that is the first. Second, I suppose that data literacy also helps you break assumptions. Again, I'll take an example. So during our finance commission deliberations, when we are meeting all the states, they would be very passionate about certain things, and their narratives would be about everything. For example, they would say that our expenditures are rising, but our revenue growth is not up to the mark, is actually decreasing. And the past finance commission devolutions have also penalized us. Okay, and that's fine. Of course, they will be passionate about everything that they're raising. But the moment you start talking about data, the moment you start talking with data, the entire narrative changes, So there is no emotions anymore. Okay, it might happen that whatever data we have or whatever data they have, it might actually validate their narrative. And on the other hand, it might negate their narrative. But then when you have a data mindset or a data informed mindset, I think it imparts an intellectual honesty to the entire public policy discourse. And I think that is very important. Okay. And then data is something, that also makes you humble. Think about it. I mean, we are all people of intuition. We get a sense, we get a vibe, we get a feel key, something might be happening. But then data, teaches you to accept evidence. Okay. And it also makes you realize that your experience might not be the country's experience. Okay. And I think this ability to be corrected by evidence is what differentiates a good policymaker from a well-meaning one.
Rightly said.
Yeah.
So data kind of brings practicality into the entire system.
It does. It does.
And do you think emotion should be a part of policymaking at all, or only practicality is important?
No, no, of course. See, I think what you try to say is not emotion, but maybe empathy.
That would be
Okay, and
the right,
of course,
yes.
I think, empathy is one of the most important leadership qualities and one of the most important trait that you need to have as a policymaker. There's no doubt about that. Unless you feel, for example, I took the example of Motard. Okay, I did not feel emotional when I saw the plight of the small taxpayers there, but I was empathetic. Okay, and when I say I was empathetic, I mean the system was empathetic
Right.
towards their grievances. Okay, unless you have that empathy, you won't act on their behalf. You
Right.
won't act for them. Okay, so I think yes, emotion, as you termed it, or empathy, as I want to call it, is extremely important as far as public policy is concerned.
Is concerned. Right. So large scale, and I think that is very relevant to what you have just mentioned, that large scale reforms always often face resistance. So how do you navigate this cultural or institutional barrier while bringing these reforms?
Again, a very good question. My take on that is large scale, reforms don't fail because of the idea itself. Okay, people don't resist any reform because it's a reform. They resist it because they are not certain about it. Okay, reforms don't scare people. Change doesn't scare anyone. Uncertainty does. They don't know what is going to be a reform's impact or a law's impact on their day-to-day life. Okay, and I think there's 2 or 3 things that can be done in my limited experience over the years which I have witnessed, is that if you just take care of 2 to 3 things, it might make a disproportionate impact as far as adoption and implementation of such reforms is concerned. The first is always convince the people of the why exactly a reform is needed and how exactly it is going to help them. I'll just take again a personal example, a personal professional example. When GST was being implemented, I remember that in the Goods and Services Tax network, we used to do massive outreach. All the government agencies were doing, we were also doing it. We would go to taxpayers, we would go to businesses, demonstrate the benefits of digitization. We would tell them that it is going to lead to lesser compliance time, easier compliance, reduced disputes. Your life will become much easier. Once they start seeing that, then it was easy to convince them that okay, this is going to be for your benefit, and then resistance also stops after some point of time. So you have to appreciate that resistance is not irrational. It is human. The moment you start appreciating that and you convince the people of the why behind a reform, it becomes much easier to convince them or to include them in the reform process. Second, I think is take small steps. Okay, for example, take the example of the e-invoice example which I took. So when the e-invoice scheme was launched in the country, it was not launched for all the taxpayers. Okay. There was a small set of taxpayers which had the technological wherewithals to actually adopt e-invoices, and once they demonstrated its benefits, it was very easy to scale it up. So we gave it time, 6 months, almost 8 months, to show to the other taxpayers, the smaller taxpayers also, the benefit that invoicing brings. Okay, and then it became much more easier to scale it up to other dimensions, to other areas of the businesses. Right. Third, I suppose, is that you should reward early adopters. Okay, and this is something which is true for all the aspects of public policy. For example, if you have a district, okay, where the administrators have adopted a new workflow in their systems, if you have a state which has implemented some sort of a technology using drone technology, etc., or you have one pocket in Maharashtra where they have a very good self-help group model, okay, you need to bring out these stories. Because people, this point which the wholesome or the summary of this point is that people don't get impressed by pressure. People don't get influenced by pressure. They get influenced by peers. Okay, if you have examples and if you have scaled up examples where they see the benefits, okay, they don't see their development or their growth, despite the reform, they see it as an opportunity. And then you will have many more adopters coming in. Okay, so I think these 2-3 things, if we keep in mind, as per my experience, my limited experience, it becomes way easier to navigate the resistance that is followed after big reforms.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, because India is a democratic country, I think to bring reforms in India is bit more difficult as compared to, this is my view, as compared to probably a dictatorship
No, you
economy.
are no. I mean, that's of course. I mean, a little controversial, but that's also true. Democratic processes are time taking. It's a fact. But then there is a flip side to it, a good flip side to it. For example, being a democracy, it's very difficult to bring in reforms. Okay, or it takes time to bring in reform. It takes time to convince all the stakeholders. But once a reform is introduced, it is going to stay there.
Right.
But if you talk about dictatorship, they can just change it the very next day.
Right.
Okay, so that I think is one benefit that a democracy like India has. For example, think about GST, think about the LPG reforms of the 1991, think about many other reforms in the telecom sector, reforms on other fields also. Once they are there, they are going to stay there forever. I mean, there's no going back on that.
Right.
Okay, so I would say that reforms in a democratic setup are sustainable and long-lasting.
Though time consuming.
Though time consuming, that's fine.
Exactly.
That's fine. It's okay. It's okay if it takes more time. But then if it is there and there for a long time, for a sustainable period of time, then that's one advantage that we cannot anyway get in a autocratic setup, right?
So one last question I have for you. For young professionals who want to build a career in governance or public policy, what is the one piece of advice you will give them?
Okay, so when I was preparing for civil services, at that time, the ecosystem was very different. Public policy as a profession was largely confined to bureaucrats, few economists here and there. But things have changed rapidly now. Okay, so now I remember like in 2013 and 14 when I was preparing for civil services, there was hardly any good public policy schools in the country. Today you have many. Okay, so now today, many ministries and government organizations and bodies, they are recruiting young professionals, they are recruiting consultants, and even interns in good numbers.
That's true.
Okay, so that changes also there. And now you have many think tanks, you have many research organizations working in the field of economics and public policy. And even many private sector companies, big private sector companies are recruiting public policy professionals and economists. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that the ecosystem has transformed a lot in the last decade or so, and the the young professionals should be able to leverage that to its full potential. Now coming back to your question, like what's my suggestion? My one suggestion would be to try building your career around curiosity and not certainty. Okay, because in a rapidly changing world, nothing is certain. What job you are going to do today might actually become redundant in a year or so, because things are changing very rapidly because of AI, because of technology, because geopolitics and so on. Okay, but if you're curious and you are always willing to learn, you will always find exciting opportunities. And second thing which I think is also very important to understand, not a suggestion but a realization or rather a reflection, that your first job is never going to define you as a person, define you as a professional. Okay, so don't fall into this trap of inner calling in the initial stages of your career. If you are 21, 22 years old and you think that this is my inner calling, no, it doesn't happen that way. Okay, your inner calling comes into bits and pieces after you have navigated through and meandered through different career options. Okay, but again, if I have to summarize this, curiosity always triumphs over certainty when you are trying to have a career as far as public policy is concerned.
Is there anything you would have done differently had you been at the age of 21, 22?
That's again a personal question, but a very good one. And my personal philosophy in life has always been not to regret anything. So I don't regret anything, okay? And also I don't believe in what ifs. What if I had done something differently? I believe that you should have gratitude. What if my father had not decided to send me to Delhi to pursue higher studies? Okay, I would have still been there. So I have more gratitude for the fact that I came to Delhi and I became what I became. Okay, we should always strive, we should always aspire to go to a better place, do better in life, in relationship and career. But don't hold any regrets about life. Have gratitude for what you have, and at the same time aspire for bigger and better things in life.
Got it.
Yes.
So before we end, one
Yeah,
last
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, sure.
I never got to ask you how many attempts it took to clear the IAS exam.
Again, UPSC as an exam is very strange. See, again, giving you a longer answer than I should be giving, but I think setting the context is really important here. So UPSC is a difficult exam. It is considered one of the most difficult exam. And what do you think is the reason for that?
You're getting the best officers who are going to be the
Yes.
policymakers of India.
Yeah, but then what is that makes this exam very difficult?
Because there is so much competition.
Absolutely. So this exam as such, I mean the quality of question, the questions might be difficult, the questions might be easy also. For example, I can simply ask like 10 standard questions also. But this exam is still going to be so difficult. Why?
right.
Because the competition is so much. Every year you have 5 to 10 lakh people appearing for this exam.
Exactly.
Do you think someone who has rank 1000 and that's the last rank knows like way too more than a person whose rank is say 1001? It's not that. It's also a matter of luck. One question, one section of a question can actually completely transform your career in a sense that you might actually be in the services or outside the services. So I because to like filter out only say 500 to 1000 civil servants out of a pool of 5 to 10 lakh people, of course hard work is important, but it's also luck also plays a very important part. Okay, now I'll come back to the question. I was very lucky that 2013 was when I gave my mains, and that was the first time the pattern changed. Okay, so instead of 2 optionals, we had 1 optional. Instead of 2 GS papers, we had 4 GS papers. And I think I was able to like navigate those changes a little better, and I could crack in my first attempt. Okay, so that was my first attempt. But again, I'm telling, I was very lucky. I worked hard, of course. Everyone works hard. That's like the common minimum. But at the same time, you also need to have a stroke of luck, particularly in exams like UPSC and also IIT, etc.
That's right.
Yes.
But still, I mean, we should appreciate the fact that you cleared it in the first attempt.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy that I could clear in my first attempt. And again, I have gratitude towards my luck, in that sense that, I was lucky enough because, see, again, to make another point, to make this point even more stronger, that I have seen many people who could not qualify, who are better than me as far as your intellect and your brilliance is concerned. Okay, so it's not like, there are people who could not qualify this exam, so they don't deserve to be inside the system. They deserve to be inside the system, but because of some reason or the other, they might have a bad day, and then they could not qualify. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that it should never bring any sense of arrogance in you that I have qualified the civil services after qualifying such a difficult exam. Many people do, many people don't. Okay, so you are lucky that you are here, and make the most out of it. Contribute to the nation, contribute to the society.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I hope that, the students will really, really understand the different aspects that you covered, how policy making is important in India, and how you have to add practicality to it, what data means. And at the end, I really wish that one day few of our students will be at your position.
Absolutely.
And they will be meeting you in person as part of the the system, as being officers.
And they would be most welcome. And if they have learned from you, I would be even more eager to meet them.
Right.
And it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Arju. And all the best for your initiative also. You're doing a great job. Okay, and I'm really happy because whenever I see someone in this space of teaching, and I think that's one of the most impactful thing that you can do as an individual towards the society. So all the best for your initiatives and for your ventures.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.